Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Chew. I'm Robert Wallace. This is the place where we ask, are we choosing the way of Jesus, or are we choosing our own way? Looking at our passage, we'll look at two halves of it here today, from Mark chapter 2, verses 25 through chapter 3, verse 6. We have to ask ourselves, are we accepting or stubborn when it comes to Sabbath rest? Now, in our passage in the first half, in chapter 2, verses 25 through the end of the chapter, Jesus is speaking about David and his companions, and when they ate the consecrated bread, because the Pharisees were upset because the disciples were picking off heads of wheat and eating them on the Sabbath. And then in Mark chapter 3, verses 1 through 6, again, the Pharisees are confronted with the truth. Jesus asked them, is it right to do good or evil on the Sabbath? And he heals a man's shriveled hand. Now, in both of these encounters, it's very simply this: Jesus giving the Pharisees an opportunity to rethink the way they view the Sabbath. And of course, the Pharisees were unmovable in this position that he wasn't to do any of those things on the Sabbath. And then Jesus tells them in verse 28 that he is the Lord of the Sabbath. So where does this leave us? Well, Zehnder, in his book, The Red Letter Challenge, he points out that people fall on one side of this or the other, that some people will refuse to go to work if it involves working on Sunday. They won't take the job, and for others, it's not an issue at all. It boils down to this legalistic approach to the Sabbath. Now, I don't want to judge one position right or wrong here. It's a matter of our heart. And that is what Jesus is driving us to. The purpose of the Sabbath is for a time of rest, to be refreshed, and to honor God. The Sabbath is not only God's intent for us, he set the example for us in Genesis chapter 2, verses 1 through 3. It says this: "Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all he had done." And then we read in Exodus chapter 31, verse 17, "On the seventh day he rested and was refreshed." God set the example for us here, friends. The example for us to follow, a pattern from the very beginning for us in this life. So we have an opportunity to understand the Sabbath in a new way through Jesus. He's calling us to observe the Sabbath in a way that flows from our heart of love and gratitude, not a task to be completed. To understand the Sabbath is rest for us, not for God. And Jesus says in Mark chapter 2, verse 27, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Okay, here are my questions for today. Is my heart, is it stubborn towards God's intended purpose for the Sabbath? Am I willing to accept the intent of the Sabbath as applied by Jesus? Am I willing to allow the Holy Spirit to direct my Sabbath observation? What are we going to do with what we learn here today from the Holy Spirit? Are we going to choose the way of Jesus that leads to life and life in the full, or are we going to choose our own way? I'm praying for all of us today as we consider this passage again and the questions that the Holy Spirit has prompted me to give to us, that we're going to invite the Holy Spirit to give us eyes to see and ears to hear God's truth from His Word. That we're going to have receptive hearts and minds to receive these truths. And then, today, we're going to make a decision and we're going to do what the Holy Spirit leads us to do by taking action. I pray you'll have a wonderful day, my friends. Go in the peace of God. Blessings to you. Bye for now.